I'm only being silent for dramatic purposes. Okay, we can definitely turn the audio off, or low. Because we're just going to turn it back up after this. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time zone you're in. This is not a walkthrough, this is not a playthrough. Getting to the point, it's a meow verdict. Sorry, this is a Stray verdict. There you go. So, what do I give this game? Since we just finished it just I guess 30 minutes ago? It's a meow out of 10. It's perfect. Well, enough cat hijinks or cat jokes. So, to be frank and to be realistic, it gets a 9 out of 10 out for me. It gets a 9 out of 10. Again, this is not going to be everyone's cup of tea, but get out of here. It got a 9 out of 10. Go play the game. That's it. Okay, I guess we'll let the Stray just kind of melt and purr, and we'll move on. Have a good one, everybody. Okay, no, I'm kidding. Now, you didn't come here to just look at a cat pretty much for a good, like, 20 to 30 minutes, depending on how long this verdict video is. No, you came for the verdict video of why I gave it a 9 out of 10. I'll tell you why. Let's get started. Alright, so the negative for Stray, and I had to sleep on this because it was really hard to find some nitpick on Stray. I know what my friend didn't like about it, but I know what I didn't like about it, or what I had a nitpick about it. No, I loved Stray. Stray was really good. There's a reason why I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. The negative is the jumping mechanics. It's not like free roam in a sense. So with the Stray, it's a minor nitpick, but I can't overlook it. But whenever you jump into tables or anything, just jumping in general, to the roof, to the tables, to any platform on Stray, it's limited. And being the cat, I feel like you could jump everywhere. Like, just jump on the couch, jump to, let's just say, the fan, or jump everywhere. I felt like the control they gave you for the jumping mechanics for this cat, only positive effect, because that Stray's looking at me, maybe because he realized I'm talking. And maybe he wants me to give him a 10 out of 10, but I can't because of the jumping mechanics. It's because it's so limited of where you can jump in the game. It's where you have to jump at a certain position or jump to a certain platform. The game doesn't really give you a lot of freedom in terms of the jumping mechanics. It's a very minor nitpick, but it's a missed opportunity. I feel like as a cat, you can jump and whirl. You can jump anywhere. And just because of the first level was just so open and big, because it starts with other cats, the Stray, I just felt like that was a missed opportunity that we could jump everywhere. It probably would have gave me a 10 out of 10 if they went that far. But they kind of like, they let him jump, but only for a limited amount, where he could absolutely make the jump. So there was no sense of fear if that cat just straight up miss a platform, because he's going to just basically have a precise way of jumping. He's never going to miss a jump. So that lack of kind of jumping mechanics, just to push it to that jumping mechanics, just give him the freedom, it was a minor nitpick. It's not like a huge big deal, but I couldn't overlook that. I just felt like it made the game too easy. I kind of wish they took the Assassin's Creed approach, like the 1 and 2, where you could jump anywhere, and if you screw up and miss that jump, that's your own freaking fault. So that's kind of a missed opportunity. But that's the only negative of pretty much a very fantastic polished game. I didn't see any technical issues, but that's not going to be a positive. I just think that's pretty much worth mentioning. Alright, so let's talk about the positive. First positive. Here we go, jump rolls. I like the story. I absolutely like the story. I think it had great pacing. That's what did it well. Everywhere we went in the narrative was perfect. I like that. Perfect. It was perfect. Anyway, from the start to the beginning, the story it set a tone. It was about the last brick of humanity, but expressed through cats. So the companions found their kind of companionship and just like a hope through a cat. I think that was pretty cool. I feel like the cat and the B12 are the heart and soul of the story, obviously, because B12, spoiler alerts, is a scientist from decades ago, and he is also the heart and soul of the story because he's showing what humanity was like with consciousness, thinking, just kind of like the life before the plague took all that. It's just about memories and just kind of moving forward and just hope. There's a lot of hope, and there are some dark overtones, but it was about hope, memories, just companionship throughout the whole 7 to 9 hour journey. And I felt like the story really polished that. It really showed that specifically in the relationship for Stray and B12. But in terms of the story, I think it had pretty solid plot points. There wasn't really anything that was like left unresolved except until the very end. Since we don't know if B12 survived, we don't know if he absolutely survived. But I think that's the way to end this type of story. In other words, great budding relationship between Stray and B12. I think I could include that, but I think it's going to be its own thing. We can make that its own positive. But also because the story had a sense of purpose because of its pacing. Wherever we went in terms of story, it just made sense because that's where they needed to kind of reconnect the Wi-Fi or to progress the plot or go to the layer to the Zerg to get to point A to point B. It just didn't make sense. It did not make sense for us to go to certain locales to get to the end point because it was such a great A to B format. It made sense for the Stray to miss that pipe, fall into the lost city full of robots, and then he's literally exploring. It just made sense that he find B12 because he's a cat in a strange land. So that's what I mean about the story. It was great pacing and it led up to a great, very introspective ending. And I feel like this is kind of like because it was made during COVID times really plays a lot into the story. You can see it. You can see the similarities, but we can't really touch on that. So yeah, story is A plus in my book. Yeah. And I'll include this in the first positive too. I think the ending was solid too. I think it was fitting and solid for this type of game. Why? Because it pretty much it was a solid conclusion to the characters we started with. The cat and B12, their character arcs were wrapped up in a neat little bow that I was actually impressed. I very much appreciate how, even though the cat didn't get character development, it's a cat, what do you expect? But B12, he had a great introduction and a solid conclusion to his character arc. If they do a sequel, which I really hope they don't, I think they left it in a good way that there really doesn't need to be a sequel. I hope they don't do it. Just saying, I think it ended perfectly that it should. That's all I'm saying. So apart from that, I think it had a solid ending. I think it hit for the emotional gut punch. I think there was a purpose of B12 sacrificing himself to open the door of light, which is basically hope. It was hope through a metaphor for the door, through the pretty much the robots being in solitude and isolation for decades, for billions of years. But I think that hope really will stick with you. And then it really shows with the cat, even though I don't know if he'll retain the memory, but I think he did in his own subtle way. But the cat basically saying, when I looked at TV tropes, I love you towards the end through its own kind of body language was very profound. And plus, the cat making it to the surface when he came for the surface and then got out of the surface, I think that was fitting too. And just the fact that it basically took its long breath in its own cat version of basically, I'm back in the surface. I miss the sunlight. I miss the outdoor air. That's what was missed while we were pretty much claustrophobic throughout the whole kind of dark, dank, robotic city full of dark corridors and just no sunlight. There was no sunlight. It was pretty much darkness. So yeah, sure, the cat doesn't find his family, but the fact that he made it alive to the surface is fitting because that's kind of how it probably felt for. I can't speak for everyone, but that's probably how it felt when people got when the lockdown for COVID got released. Pretty much going outside, missing the sunlight, the outdoor air, talking to your friends, families. I imagine that really hit hard in terms of ending because it was kind of parallels to COVID, but with the cat. Maybe some people didn't get that from the ending, but that was kind of my parallels because I think it was kind of like take that COVID, but in terms of the cats, I think the ending was very profound, and I think maybe that's why it got nominated for Game of the Year. We knew it was going to Elden Ring, but I'm glad it got knowledge. Very much appreciated. Okay, second positive. Stray and because I don't know the cat's name, but we could say Stray or Cat and B12's relationship. Because it was so natural and organic, they gradually became best buds and it felt earned by the end. It's because we took the cat reacted how a cat should react to a machine that they'd never seen before. That's what they did extremely well. Great introduction. Pretty much learning the memories of B12 and basically the cat showing its empathy throughout the whole journey was cool. The fact that their synergy and their teamwork to solve the puzzle mechanics, they were essential. The cat was basically the muscle and the B12 was basically the brain, the brawn. Well, not the brawn, but the brain. But their synergy to kind of solve the puzzles, they were essential. They none neither side, the cat or B12, was not essential. They were both essential. In order to survive their perilous situation, both of them were necessary. B12 for the light source, and pretty much the cat for its versatility or just its agility to get through all the zergs and all the horrible monsters that we encounter, the zergs and the big freaking eyeballs, or the Centennials trying to avoid that too. I think it was great. It not only was great in terms of the narrative, it was great in terms of the gameplay because they were both essential. No one felt like a weak link or one was carrying the other. Well, yeah, I mean the cat was carrying the B12, but B12 was also carrying the cat too. He saved his life a few times, but the cat did the same thing too. So yeah, it was just a natural, organic relationship that was built perfectly and fleshed out perfectly, even though the cat didn't get character development. But it had a natural conclusion that it made sense in that. And learning about B12's backstory too, that he was a scientist, and what his life was like and his family, yeah, cherry on top. It reminded me of Trico and the boy done in a natural, organic way for that type of game, and it just was a cat and a robot. Take it for a will. I was impressed. I was extremely impressed. I love I love that it kept me guessing in the relationship and it just felt it was just like it felt like a fleshed out relationship. And I like that. I like when a game built out a relationship like that. It can be pretty much an inanimate object and basically a cat, or just a human and a cat. If you take the time to pretty much flesh out those type of relationships, you get an A plus in my book. Another positive. I don't think the music was the greatest, but I think the music was appropriate, fitting, and emotional, and very atmospheric for it. Atmospheric music done well, like Hyper Light Drifter. I think Stray's music was pretty good for the most part. I actually pleasantly surprised. Will I download it on Spotify? No, but in terms of the context of the game, I think the music was appropriately fitting for every scene that it was. The music never felt overstayed its welcome or repetitive. I felt like the music was appropriate, emotional, and it was very atmospheric. I know I repeat the same thing, but I think it was very atmospheric for all the scenes that happened, especially the horror sequences. I think it kicked off, and the heist sequences and the nightclub sequences. Yeah, Yawn. I hope they compile more music in the future because I think for these type of games, Yawn, the composer, does extremely well for that type of scenario or those type of games. Yeah, bravo on Yawn for his music. I hope his music got knowledge too, but I gotta throw it because the cyberpunk music that he was able to implement or the electronic music or just pretty much the kind of muted music throughout certain scenes, I think it was pretty much a crowning achievement in terms of that. I don't think it was the best music, but I think it's worth mentioning. Okay, another thing, it was also this is kind of the other side of the spectrum, but it's really the jumping mechanics that were negative. But the like pretty much the gameplay, I think the gameplay was also fantastic too. Pleasantly surprised. It's not the jumping mechanics, but it was just basically the actual cat mannerisms. When basically we were doing cat hijinks, scratching the floor, scratching the door, pretty much purring on the robots, or just a cat nap, or just meowing. The simple button of meowing. Let's face it, who didn't press the O circle or the O circle just to do the meow? Everyone freaking did. I think I did the meow like more than 100 times, but it's so engaging. I love that. I love that it was so engaging in terms of the meowing, the purring, the cat scratch, to pretty much using the cat's using the cat's body to get through a bar. It was very cool. I like that. And plus, when we get the light source, it makes you feel powerful, freaking powerful, short but sweet. But yeah, the gameplay in terms of the cat mechanics and the light source for B12 when we get to use them, it's also fantastic too, especially when we get to pretty much the chase scene. I think that was pretty much a great combination of what we learned in terms of cat mechanics. It makes you think on your feet, literally. But yeah, even then, when nothing's like action heavy happening, just the cat physics are very well done too. I think that's worth mentioning. And then when you get the light source with B12, that's worth mentioning too. So yeah, bravo on the gameplay. It's simple but effective. And the last positive on that, because I got to sleep on this and I know what to talk about, puzzle physics. That was a highlight too. It wasn't like to the degree of The Witness or Portal or those kind of grounding achievements of puzzles like that's a puzzle. But it was fitting and it was fun puzzles because they kept me thinking outside of the box and I had to think cat logic. I'm like, yeah, it makes sense for the cat to just screw with somebody just so he can progress the plot. It makes sense that the cat has to be in the box so he can go past security. It makes sense for this cat to be able to fit through the metal bar because it's a freaking cat. It was kind of like aha moments, but really cool. Yeah, and it wasn't just the puzzles. The side activities and the side collectibles were worth engaging too. It got me sucked into the world. Investing. It was worth investing because I actually gave a crap about what was going on in the world. And yeah, I just liked the puzzle physics because there were so many good aha moments, but in the very organic and very it made sense because it's a freaking cat, or it made sense because B12 would be able to hack electronics because he's a robot. There were just so many point. As a matter of fact, this is how you do it, and I liked it. I highly enjoyed the puzzle. I think they were extremely clever, and it worked very well for utilizing pretty much the cat and B12's relationship. I think it expanded it and it made them essential, like I said before. But we also gotta mention with the characters, because Stray and B12 are standouts. I think the robot companion characters, we can't leave them out. I think they were fantastic as well. The dialogue with those characters, along with B12, yeah, you didn't think I was gonna mention the dialogue. Now, the dialogue is not like Mass Effect standards, but I think the dialogue really fits, and it was kind of touching, very philosophical, metaphorical, and kind of emotional a few times too. But it helps with the companion characters or companion robots. Along with the companion robots, that B12 and Stray are just well written. Of course, if we need to know who's the best characters on that, it's obviously the cat and B12, but it doesn't help that the side characters, the companion robots, are not are well rounded too. They're not as like fleshed out as the B12, but their personality quirks are like really relatable and very cool too. I like that. Not like cool, but very relatable and empathetic. You really like learning about the robot characters, and you don't mind talking to all the robotic companions because they have such great personality quirks because they're based on humanity. I think they were a highlight too, and I like talking to every side characters, and I like screwing with them as the cat too. So yeah, I think the robotic companions, wait, I think they're called the companion robots, are very also a highlight too. I wasn't going to mention them, but they had me smiling because they were just so human. That's kind of ironic since they're robots. Okay, so this might be one of my shorter reviews, but I think that's pretty much it. I think there was so many positive. Sure, the jumping mechanics kind of took me out of the experience, but I think the positives outweigh the negative truly. I think it's worth a 9 out of 10. I highly recommend you guys at least try it once. There's not a lot of replayability, even I know that. I think it's worth playing once, get all the trophies, and then you don't have to play it again. I think some of it might be easy to get the trophies, not all of them, but I think it's worth playing this once, rented it, or if you rented it, cool. I don't think it's worth buying, but I think it's worth playing for the time it's on PlayStation Plus Extra and Premium. I think it's worth playing. I'm, it's got my seal approval. I think it's a 9 out of 10. So, I'm just going to repeat what I said in the last video. So the main focus for the rest of this week, might take a mini break this week too, but the major focus is going to be, well, doing a retro walkthrough that I already beat the game. I already gave the verdict. Yeah, Marvel's Avengers. That's going to be the next to-do list. Saints Row Gather Hell is also going to be the new to-do list, but if I don't finish that, that's not a big deal. Because I really want to focus on Saints Row the 4, but I'm going to do it because it's coming on PlayStation Plus, or it's going out of PlayStation Plus on July 18th. But I'm not going to be in a rush to finish Gather Hell. And I'm not going to be in a rush to finish Marvel Avengers. I finished Marvel Avengers, but I want to play in 4K. So, yeah, Marvel's Avengers, that's going to be the major focus, same as Gather Hell. Depending if we finish those two games, because they take a little bit, but not too long, but if we finish those games pretty fast, then we're going to move on to one of the other big three games. So, not Returnal, because I think we did a good chunk, and we left it at a good place that we could take a minor break from it. But I'm going to try to do either Spider-Man Miles Morales, either that, or Horizon Zero Dawn, the Frozen Wilds edition, just to finish that out. Possibly. Or we might go back to Elden Ring because it's been a while, embarrassingly so. Gosh. So, of course, leave a like, comment, or subscribe. Or what's your favorite pet game? Or did you enjoy Stray? Of course, leave a like, or subscribe, or leave a comment. That's all. So, of course, there's not going to be another Stray video, sorry. But, of course, have a perfect day and stay tuned. That joke killed me inside, but I don't care.